Hi, my name is Chef Leroy Payne. We're here today on Spokane Cooks show. Today we're going to be doing barbecue ribs here at Falcos in the Valley. I'm going to show you at home how you can cook a good quality rack of ribs, quick and simple, whether you're using your barbecue or your oven. All right, guys, we're back again. Spokane Cooks. We are going to be doing ribs as we had talked about before. What I do want to tell you, we are going to be cooking everything on wood planks. Wood planks is the hottest, newest method. It's not new, it's been around forever. It's just been upgraded to a better situation. We no longer just cook with cedar planks. Nowadays we can cook with all different types of wood, whether it's hickory, whether it's peach, whether it's pecan, whatever you like. In the oven, on the grill, whatever you like, guys. This is the newest, best method of cooking. And that's how we're going to cook our ribs today. I do cook competition ribs all over the country and do very well. This is the method I'm starting to use for my ribs. Now, let's talk about ribs for a minute. There are basically 3 cuts of pork ribs that you can get. There's the baby back ribs, which is the upper curved portion that we're familiar with on the rib cage of the pig. Then you have the spare ribs, which comes from the baby backs down to the belly, which goes into the bacon. What we're going to be cooking on today is what we call St. Louis cut. We take those big spare ribs, we trim them down nice and clean, and you have great, nice, meaty ribs to cook with. So I'm going to start by showing you how to do that. This is what we all use in competition these days because the ribs are so much more meaty and more uniform. This is a rack of spare ribs. Like I said, it comes off of the rib cage, those baby back ribs that goes into the spare rib. The first thing we want to do, they always have a flap of meat in here. This isn't too bad, but I like to get rid of that first, so we'll just trim that extra meat off. I would suggest take this meat, if you're going to trim it off, put it in your freezer, throw it in your chili, in your meat, whatever you like, your soups. It's a great added piece of meat that you can use however you want. I just don't like it for my ribs. I like nice, clean ribs. And so does the bee. But that's okay. So, once you've got that done, what we're going to do now is make the cut to turn this into St. Louis ribs. If you look right through here, you'll see there's a bone that bends. This is the chine bone, these are the ribs. I'm going to cut right down through the center of those ribs to turn these into St. Louis cut ribs. Now the meat that I cut off is what you will get if you go to the restaurant and ask for rib tips or riblets. It is the trimmed meat. And I'm also going to cook that for you today and show you how to do this. Like I had said before, all the cooking we do, all of the stuff can be done at home in your oven. You don't need to cook on a grill or a barbecue to get all this done. So you can do this at home. So we're going to start with bending that bone up, feeling where that joint is, cutting through the joint, and I will mark my ribs on a nice straight line. Then finish cutting through those joints. This is where it pays to have a good, solid, sharp knife. In fact, you know what the most dangerous tool in the kitchen is? It's a dull knife. Make sure you have good, sharp knives. So we're simply going to cut down through here, and now you have your riblets and your rib tips. That is the piece that we're trimming off. Let me grab a pan real quick. We will throw that on the barbecue also, and now you have a set of St. Louis cut ribs. Nice, clean cut rib. Now the only thing we need to do now is get the membrane off of the back. Guys, it's the most important thing to do, and it's the toughest thing to do unless you have a little trick, which I'm going to show you. If you don't get this membrane off, it won't allow the seasoning, it won't allow the moisture, it won't allow you to have good ribs. You'll have a leather edge, a tough, chewy part on your rib. So it is important to get it off, and I'm going to show you the easiest way to do that. I'm going to trim this little piece off here, I don't like it. It is the easiest, the best little trick I can show you. First of all you do is loosen up that membrane, put your knife under it. You can use a butter knife, you can use a spoon, back of a spoon, whatever you like. Get that little piece of membrane off of there and grab a paper towel. Best secret I ever found. Take a paper towel, grab that membrane, you can hold on to it, and it'll always come off in one clean piece, sometimes. So I'll move that out of the way. And there's most of your membrane. Of course, it didn't all come off because I said it would. But just grab it with your paper towel, pull the rest of that membrane off. Now you have ribs that are ready to cook. Membrane's gone, nice clean cut ribs. The next thing we're gonna do now is season them. What I like to do, start off on the back. I use my rub. It's a competition rub that I've come up with. Now you can come up with any other rubs that you like. There's so many good ones. Falcos here, where we're cooking today, has got probably the best selection of rubs and sauces and ribs and stuff that you can use for cooking. I believe you're also going to be able to buy this Kelly Craig wood assortment here also. So take your rub, start on the back. I put what I call a nice dusting on the back and on your rib tips. Turn that over. Try and beat the bees. I don't like bees. And now you're going to color the front side. You're going to put a good coating of rub on this side. And I call it coloring because I want every piece of that meat completely covered with rub, along with everything behind me because of the wind. But that's okay. It'll be flavorful today. So I get a good coating on that side and on this side. After you've got your rub on there, your ribs are ready to sit for, I would let this sit either overnight or for a couple hours to let that soak in good, because you want that, your rub moist and soaked in there. Another important point, they call it rub. Never rub your ribs. Let it sit on there. If you rub it, you take off that even coating that you've put on. Also, we talk about mopping and spraying your ribs when you're cooking them, either in the oven or on your grill. Never mop or spray until you've had the ribs set in color. So all I'm going to do is pat this in a little bit. If you want to speed up the process, there is a trick. Take a bottle of regular spray water. I should be using wasp spray, I guess, but I'm not. Wouldn't be very edible then. But if you want to just simply wet it down, you can speed the process up with it, but you do it with just water. A lot of people, in fact, I have sprayed with apple juice, a mixture of 50-50 apple juice water. A lot of people do that. I use just water, and I'm going to impair the other flavors in there a little bit later when we get to wrapping the ribs. So those ribs now are almost ready to go on. I would let them set, like I say, for about another hour, half hour to an hour. Let them set till they get a good smoke on or color on them. Then it would go on the smoker or in your oven at 225 degrees. Guys, barbecue, we call this barbecue. Barbecue by definition is low and slow with indirect heat. Grilling is what a lot of us think of when we talk about barbecuing. Hamburgers, hot dogs, seafood. There's nothing wrong with that, but guys, that's grilling. That's direct high heat. We are going to be cooking with low and slow indirect heat. We are going to be cooking on the Traeger. There are so many good grills out there, but Traegers are a great grill, which, by the way, you can get here at Falcos. They have a great assortment of every kind of grill, everything you would want to cook on. But we're going to let this sit now, and in a few minutes, we're going to put it in the smoker. We will put it in that smoker for about 2 hours. After 2 hours, you're waiting for your rub to set to create what we call the bark. I don't cook so much with temperature. I cook with appearance and feel of the meat. So this meat, I already have ribs cooked in here that are ready right now to come out, and I'll show you the color of the bark. This is when you know your ribs are ready to be wrapped. And that is what we're going to do right now. This is those rib tips that we had already cooked, that I've already got cooked this morning. I did exactly the way I just showed you. What we're going to do real quickly, I am going to bring out some foil, and we're going to do what's called the Texas crutch. We are going to wrap our ribs with a little bit of flavoring. We're going to do honey, brown sugar, and a little bit of apple juice to give it a little extra flavor. and they will continue to cook in the foil for about another hour. They will be done. So I'm going to get 2 pieces of foil out here because I am going to do those rib tips separately. So let's get 2 pieces of foil and our ribs. We'll start with first our ribs that we've cooked on the plank. That is the dried out color that I'm looking for bark. It is just about perfect. The other thing you would do is pick them up and see how well they bend. If the ribs bend easily, almost tear apart, they are ready to wrap. And those are perfectly bending. You can see a slight tear in the rib. That means they're cooked perfectly. So I will put that down, lose our plank for now. It has given us our flavor, all the moisture and the flavor that we needed. So now what I will do, take a little bit of honey and regular brown sugar. Nothing works on camera, guys, as it should at home. So we put a little bit of honey on there. It's working. The magic of TV will allow me to do this. So put a little bit of honey on there. I have friends up in Canada that I cook with competing. They use maple syrup. A lot of people are now using guava syrup. Whatever you would like to put on there is a sweet syrup you can put on there. Then we put a little bit of brown sugar on it. Just enough to give it a nice coat. Then the real secret ingredient, apple juice. Now guys, you can use apple juice. You can use Jack Daniels. I didn't say that, but you can use Jack Daniels if you want. But any kind of juice you want to put on here. I also use peach nectar. You can also use 7-Up. I had a friend of mine use Mountain Dew. Whatever it takes to give you a little bit of flavor. So all I'm going to do is pour a little bit of apple juice on here, just to impair a little bit more moisture and flavor. I'm going to turn it over quickly before that runs on the table. And then we're going to foil it up. Then this is going to go back on the smoker. By the way, did you see that I put the brown sugar, the honey on there, and then the juice, and turned it over? You want the meat side down inside those juices so it impairs the flavor and gives you that extra juice in there. So all I'm going to do now is just simply wrap it in foil. And I'm using heavy duty foil. People, please use heavy duty foil. And we're going to put it back on the smoker. Like I said, this will set on there now for about another 45 minutes, half hour to 45 minutes, and those ribs will be fall off the bone amazing. So we're going to do the same thing with those rib tips that we did. So once again, a little bit of the rib tip and honey. It's coming, honey. There's a lot of stories there. We'll let it go. Anyway, we'll put a little bit of honey on there. And then a little bit of brown sugar again. And a little bit of apple juice. And once again, turn that over, meat side down into those juices. Wrap that up in foil. Can't believe I made it without spilling it on the counter or on the table. Wrap those up. And guys, when you wrap this up, guys and gals, don't want to get myself in trouble. When you wrap it up nice and tight, you want to get as much air out of there as you can so they will cook without tearing the foil. I'll grab this foil. Be careful when I just said you need to use heavy duty foil because if you're not careful, it will tear. And if it is, guys, that's okay. Just go ahead and rewrap it and throw it in your barbecue smoker. I'm going to set this on top of the other one because it doesn't matter now. They're just going to cook inside the foil. What we're going to do now is let those cook for another hour, half hour, 45 minutes. At that time, I'm going to probe it with my temperature gauge, not for temperature, but for the feeling. See how tender that meat's gotten. You should be able to poke it. It's like the difference between going in tough meat and going in butter. Once that's done, you take it off. The nice thing about ribs, you don't have to let them rest as you would beef or any of the other meats. Take it off, slice it up, and eat it. Now, you notice we've put no barbecue sauce anywhere on any of these ribs. You won't need it. But if you do like barbecue sauce, you'll put the barbecue sauce on after they come out of the foil, paint it on, put it back on for 10 minutes. It will set the sauce on the ribs just to set it. You don't want it too long. Then you can cut it up, or you can sauce it later, whichever you like to do. Falcos was generous to host us for our first 2 episodes of Spokane Cooks. I sat down with Grant Falco to find out more about the store and the history of the company. So we're here and we appreciate Falcos allowing us to come in and cook here and do our barbecue show here today. But we'd like you to tell us a little bit about what you do here. You're not just about barbecue, are you?
No. Well, first of all, we appreciate you guys coming here and thinking of Falcos for barbecues, but we do a lot of things. So our business started out as a fruit stand, and over the 80 years, what we've figured out is the community wants value. So we sell value, and we went from a fruit stand to a nursery with the 2nd generation, then the 3rd generation brought on fireplaces, and right now as we sit, we are a big barbecue outdoor living area, spot, destination, spices, rubs. We have fireplaces, we have wood stoves, pellet stoves, and that's really what we have been for the last 35 years, and we do it extremely well. Recently, in the last 3 or 4 years, we've brought on heating and cooling as well. So we'll do heat pumps, air conditioners, furnace, and honestly, what we're trying to give you is the best deal on things that we know are in your home and truly take care of the community.
So it's almost all, like everything here is about warmth and comfort.
100%.
Whether it's warmth and comfort food, whether it's warm and comfort in your home, sitting around with a family. What a great deal.
You couldn't have said it better. Home comfort is a big part of what
Absolutely.
we do.
And right here, guys, this is in town. This is a local business.
Yeah.
We need to support more of our local business to help grow our economy in our communities.
Yeah, Leroy, we couldn't agree more. We try to support local here, and we have, I was just with a couple, and they're from Athol, Idaho, and I say, why do you come in here? And they're just like, well, is there another place to go? We just, we've been taken care of by you guys before. They came in here, they got set up for a bid, and they're going to be taken care of. And we're just so lucky to have that following, and we hope to continue to grow that following.
Right, and isn't that business taking care of people?
100%.
Just taking care of people's needs.
Yep, absolutely. Couldn't say it better.
All right, guys, here we are. We put our ribs in, had them cook for 2 hours. We wrapped them in foil with the honey, brown sugar, and the apple juice, and let them set in there and cook for another hour, and now they are done. So we are gonna go ahead and pull those ribs out and finish them off. All right. They are full of juice. All right, we'll go ahead and cut those up. This is a rack of ribs I had done previously. These ribs we sauced. These ribs we have no sauce on. I believe if you cook your barbecue correctly, you don't need any sauce, but it's a condiment, like ketchup on your steak. It's your choice. You can have it however you want. So let's go ahead and look at these ribs. I'll tell you, this is absolutely a beautiful shot. Full of moisture, full of liquid. Those ribs are perfectly cooked. They've pulled away from the bones. They're tender, and you have lots of juice left over. There's your ribs. Beautiful, full of color. And here's your rib tips. Remember, we cut those ends off, those rib tips. This is what your rib tips look like when they're done. Once again, completely cooked, full of flavor and moisture. Now these ribs we have sauce and put back on the grill to set, or the smoker to set. These have no sauce on them. At this point I could do that, but like I said, I believe you don't need to, and sauce can be a condiment that you put on the side. So what we'll do now, I will get rid of that, and we're gonna cut some ribs up. What I try to do is go from the back, cut these little riblets up. This chine bone is pretty hard to cut through, so I'll cut around it, and you can eat that. I'll tell you what, that's some awfully good eating. The meat is there, it's just hard to get off the bone. So you could take that and throw that in here and use it for whatever you like, eat it, snack on it. But let's go ahead and cut our ribs. There are several ways to cut your ribs. Traditionally, we just like to cut between the bones. But there's also another method, I believe they call it a Nevada cut, where you go from one end of that bone all to the way to the other end of that bone. So what you end up with is one big meaty rib. Now I accidentally did cut into that bone, but that's because it's fallen apart and fallen off the bones. So you can cut any way you like. I prefer just to cut straight down if I can find the bones. There we go. And just cut through your ribs. They are falling off the bone. Then I like to take them, simply set them in a pan or whatever you want to use for serving. Those ribs are done. On the other ones, these are ones I had cut before. Same thing, I'm going to cut through the bones. I'm sorry, between the bones. So I start over here, slice back and forth. As I had said before, this is where a sharp knife comes in. Guys, you have to have a good sharp knife because you want nice, good, clean cuts all the way through the meat. Now these ribs are going to slowly start to curve a little bit. That's just the design of the pigs nowadays, I guess. Your bones start to curve, so you have to follow the angle to get nice, clean cuts out of them. But one of the reasons I like St. Louis cuts so much is because when it's all said and done, you have so much more meat on your bones than you do with baby backs. That is a nice meaty rib, and it is perfectly cooked. So guys, I would say the only thing I would go from here, if you want to jump this up just one more step, you really want to impress your friends. Most of us in the competition world will say those ribs are done, except for one last step. It's what we call finishing off with a finishing rub or a finishing powder. This powder will melt into your ribs. I'm using Popitude, and it says on here it's a finishing rub. The beauty of this, it's going to disappear on the rib because of its fine ground. So it's almost like a powder, but it will give your ribs an absolute over-the-top punch in flavor. So if you want to put a little bit of Popitude on it, which by the way you can get here at Falcos, they sell it here. It's one of the most popular rubs for finishing that you can get with your ribs. Just put a little of that on because it is a powder. It will melt into the rib and you won't see it. So for us guys that do competition, it's almost like cheating. But not quite, because it's still cooked good. But they will melt into those ribs and take your ribs, they're already amazingly good, over the top. So guys, we're going to eat these ribs and share it with everybody here at Falcos. What I'd like to do is thank you all for watching our Cooks Spokane show. This is some of the first segments we've done, and we're so happy to be here, so happy to be serving the Valley. Thank you very much for coming, watching.